Hi, so it's looking good. You're doing a really good routine so far. So you just started with your circles, and the only thing I see that is a little less than perfect is she is cutting in just a little bit when you kind of get over here. So as you make that turn and you're starting to bend her with your rein, as you squeeze and relax on that rein to get her to bend, touch her either with your calf or a little bit with that spur, just to get a little bit more arc in her body. So as she's going, let me see if I can get this playing. Right there, she cuts in a little bit. So we're just trying to get that a little bit better. And then with your outside rein, open that rein just a little bit, keep a little bit more bend in your elbow so you keep more contact on that outside rein because it's acting as a supporting rein. And what happens with most people is they pull so much on the inside rein, then the horse leans in on the pressure. So you're trying to push her out with your leg, but then kind of catch her with that outside rein and leg to support that outside. And I'm being very picky. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. But I would just open that hand more to the side, keep a little bit more bend in the elbow, and keep just a little bit more support or more pressure on that rein as you're going around with her. Okay. But each time she turned, she cut in just a little bit. So as you're going to make the turn, you want to look with your eyes, then turn your shoulders in a little bit more so your left shoulder kind of comes back towards her hindquarter, and then squeeze and relax on that inside rein. And as you're doing that, touch her a little bit with the leg each time, and then keep that right elbow bent and that right rein open just a little bit more to give her more support. So here you're doing the serpentine on and off the rail, and that's actually going pretty well. But same thing, every time you put pressure on that inside rein, I'd touch her a little bit with that leg. And when you bend her to the outside to the right, then I would touch her with your right leg. Sometimes people are using more the hands than their legs, and we're always trying to ride them with our seat and our leg and just use the hand for guiding. So now you're starting to do the flower pattern. So as you go to turn, I would lean back just a little bit more and then kind of hold with both reins as you come around the turn to support your mare, and keep your weight kind of in your seat pockets and sitting back with your upper body just back just a little bit more. But your eyes are very good and you steer very well. So here you start to turn again and just lean back a little bit more. Try to keep your eyes up exactly where you want to go. So here you went to stop, but then she kind of walked off a little bit. If she does that, push your feet out in front of you, lean back and pull really hard. And then when you go to back her up, don't look at her head, look up above her head and try to get your upper body back. So think of leaning back as you back her up. Horses also read our body language. So if you lean back when you go to back her up, in time she'll understand, and as soon as you stop and she feels your weight go back, they'll start backing up. But if you lean forward, it confuses them and they think they're supposed to go forward. So it's so windy, I couldn't hear if you said you were going to do a turn on the forehand or a turn on the haunches. I'm just trying to cut the wind out. So if you're going to do the turn on the haunches, well, let's see what you do first. I think you're starting over. So there you're starting to do a turn on the forehand because you just pushed over her hindquarter. So the only thing I'd do is lean back a little bit and make sure your eyes are looking in the direction that you want to go. A lot of people tend to look down and then it just confuses the horse more. So you want to have your eyes up kind of on the house and not her. And that will help her figure out more where to go. Now, if they get stuck, say you did the turn and then they got stuck, then you can just turn either direction to get their feet moving again. And just keep trying anytime you get stuck to raise your eyes up and make sure you're looking up over her head. Because most of the time when people get confused and the horse gets confused. We're staring down at their head. So always look up through their ears and in the direction you want to go. So in this direction, the same thing. I would just make sure that you're touching her a little bit with that calf or spur as you're making the turn, just to help her stay out more with her body and get a nice arc through her body here. And then to support more with that outside rein, which is now your left rein. And as you make any of the turns, make sure your upper body is back. Think of leaning back a little bit, that's okay. And then raise your eyes back up. A lot of times when we get nervous, we kind of get in the fetal position. So anytime somebody's nervous, I tell them, keep telling yourself, lean back, lean back, lean back. So we just get it in our mind. And most people don't fall off leaning back. So you're much safer if you keep your upper body back a little bit more so that shoulder's over your hip. Most of the time you do, but on some of the turns, that's when you kind of get tilted forward and your eyes get down. So keep those eyes up and keep thinking leaning. You want to lean back anytime you're making any of those turns. And again, when you're using that inside rein, to make sure you're touching her a little bit with that calf or spur to hold her out. So here you're doing the serpentine and you're doing good. I would just try to look up a little bit higher or look further in front of you, maybe to try to look 15 feet in front of you or 20 feet in front of you, just to help keep those eyes up. Because when you look down, then your upper body tends to fall forward. And that happens to a lot of people. These are all normal things when we're learning to ride. Okay, so now you're doing the flower pattern. I'm impressed you remembered all this or you memorized it. And so as you're getting to the end where you're going to turn, just look a little bit further ahead so she's more prepared. So I'd start turning your head now and look the direction you want to go so it's not a surprise for her. And as you turn your head and you start to bend her, think of leaning back, because now you're starting to fall forward again. So just be conscious that when you make the turns, you might be getting a little nervous or maybe you're just thinking, but you want to think, look with your eyes first, then turn your shoulders, then start turning your horse, but always have your eyes up and kind of leaning back. Okay, so now you're going to do a turn on the forehand. So that means the front feet stay still and the back feet move around. So it would be left rein and leg. You're doing pretty good. I would just lean back and lift your eyes up higher. So as you're looking around the turn, try to look at the houses or the windows in the houses. Now it looks like she kind of got stuck in her backup. That's okay. It happens to a lot of horses. She's trying to do the right thing. But if they keep backing up and you don't want to back up, besides pushing your hands forward, just take one of your reins and start turning the horse. So if you turn left or right, they'll go, oh, we're turning now instead of going backwards, and that'll usually get them to stop backing up. I have to say, every time I see her face get close to the camera, she has the most adorable face. All right, so now you're going up to your flat walk. And it doesn't have to be super speedy, especially as you're getting used to your horse. So, let's see. That's pretty good. It could be even a little bit slower if that makes you nervous at all. Now your horse has a very large step, and so that makes a lot of motion in the saddle. So I'm going to stop it for a second, if I can stop it. Okay. So when they have a very large stride, it makes a lot of motion in the saddle. So the smaller the saddle is, the more it'll contain you. So that's pretty good. Your saddle looks like it's holding you pretty well and you don't have a lot of space behind it. Other things that will help so you don't get too much of that motion or so you don't get any chafing is like a fleece pad. It actually will keep you warm in the winter and it absorbs sweat in the summer. So that's something helpful too. And then riding tights with the silicone or sticky underneath will also help so you don't move too much. And I'll send you links to those things in case you want any of them. So you'll see as you're moving, there's a lot of back and forth motion, and that's just because your mare has such a big stride. So I think I would start with your flat walk just a little bit slower. About there is pretty good, and we'll see if you stay that speed. Now you're starting to speed up again. So I would tend to stay a little bit slower. When their head is up like this, which a lot of times they like in the show ring, it's nice, but it gives you more motion in here. And if you're going to be riding her on trail, you might not want so much motion. So I would tend to have a little bit more contact on her and see if you can bring her head a little bit lower, like the top of your horn here. So bring it down a couple inches, like there, that's better. And then with her, I would keep the contact, even if she's keeping that speed, I'd try to keep her head down the whole time. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. I'm hoping she'll be quiet for a minute. So I would keep more bend in your elbow, try to keep the arms still, and keep more contact. A lot of times people are afraid to have contact on their mouth, but with her, it's gonna help you have a smoother ride. So I would stay sitting right back on your seat pockets. Keep your eyes up, looking over her head. Think of looking like 15 to 20 feet in front of her. Bend those elbows, keep a little bit more pull on that rein, and have her also go a little bit slower. She's separating her legs pretty good, but when she got faster, she did get a little bit pacey at times, and we don't need her to be real fast right now, because the flat walk is just 3 to 5 miles per hour, and we can walk 3 miles per hour. And again, they might do it faster in the show ring, but for now, we're just trying to get you riding her real nice and have her moving well, and then the speed can come later. So even this speed right there would be fine for a flat walk, and then you kind of went past it. So I would tend to stay a little bit slower with her as you're practicing it. Keep more contact, more bend in your elbow, more weight kind of on your seat pockets back here. Okay, so here it looks like you're going to do another turn on the forehand. And when you go to do this turn, I would make sure you use your right rein and your right leg, because to me it looks like you were hitting her with your left leg there as you were starting to turn. So it's always going to be the rein and the leg on the same side. And when you're moving their hind quarter, you just bring their leg back a little bit. And it's a little rein, then you'd look towards the house, lean back a little bit, and make sure it's just your right leg that you're moving, because maybe you're wiggling your left leg just to kind of help you. And then I would stand still after you do the turn so the horse doesn't rush. If you turn and walk away, the horse is always trying to get one step ahead of us. Then they just start walking around a turn instead. So make sure when you do the turn, you stop, talk to them for a little bit, or give them a little scratch for a couple of seconds, and then start walking off. Okay, so here now we're flat walking the other direction. Okay, I was trying to get the dogs out. All right, so I would keep a little bit more contact, keep your elbow bent, lean back a little bit more. Even if she gets pacey, I would tend not to lean forward on this mare, at least at this point in time. We just want to get your position a little bit more stable and steady. So keep the weight like back on where if you had jeans on, where the seat pockets would be. Lean back a little bit more with your upper body. And then if she's not going forward, think of turning your toe out a little bit more to touch her with that spur to get her to go. If you're using your spur right now, it's really not hitting her that much, because your toe's kind of up, but your foot is not turned out that much. So it's just kind of grazing her just on that side. You can see the spot. It's kind of just rubbing a little bit there. So I would keep your upper body back. Now her head was lower there, which was good. But when you have these big walking horses with these big strides, I think it's better and a little safer to keep their head down, have it tucked in a little bit more on the bit, because then you won't have as much motion. And then keep your upper body back as much as you can. If you keep a slight bend to the inside as you're going around the arena, that will also help to separate her legs some. So she's got a very nice gait. It's just some of the times it's fast and some of the times it's a little bit slower. I would tend to stay a little bit slower until you get your confidence up. So overall, I really think you did a phenomenal job. You did the whole round pen routine, and you did a great job with it, which was a great warm up for her. The only thing I would, comment more about is just when you're flat walking her, like the position she's in right now, as you're just standing there, a little bit smoother ride for you. So if you, with her, with that little arch in her neck and then her head more on the vertical, and if you had that rein a little bit tighter with your elbow bent here and that head down, you won't get so much back and forth motion because her shoulders won't be moving as much and her head won't be going up and down as much. And she's got a lot of motion, so I don't think it's really gonna hurt anything in the show ring. I think it'll just make a prettier picture. But I think if we ride her with just a little bit more contact and a little bit more collection, it'll be a smoother ride for you. Overall, I think you did really well. I know you showed me the equipment early on that she has this running martingale on, and that is totally fine for the arena to help you to keep her head down. When you ride on trail, you just have to be careful when anytime you have something connected here, even a martingale, because if you're riding in the woods, things can get caught on that, and then you can have an accident, or if you go in water and something happens, sometimes these things pull their head down and they need their head to get out of the water. If you're riding in pasture or big open spaces, then it's perfectly fine. And then the bit she has in the mouth, I saw a little slight twist with the dog bone. That's very mild bit, and that is fine too. If you need more help or you start riding without this running martingale, then we can always change the bit more if we need to have you, to help you to keep her head down. Sometimes with the snaffle, people have to put more pressure on than the shank bits to keep the horse's head down, but I think for now you're doing fine, so I would just stick with the same equipment. But overall, excellent job, so much better than the last time.